Well, I'm quite happy to, if you have questions to ask. Even though it's been approved, go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. And I apologize if I'm a little bit of a procedural mess for a little while. So, Beth, through you, Mayor Jordan, I have a motion that I've prepared. I don't know if procedure, no, can't do that. Okay, there were a few things I just had questions about. That was, do we know where, yeah. It's dividing to make 5 workspaces, is that correct?
I'll do my best to answer this question specifically in relation to the project. Oh, Brandon is on the call.
Just one more question, what we've paid for so far?
So we've paid.
Okay, last question.
This particular question, it has to do with Appendix B. Envisioning is that 20 million will end up being carried forward. On some of perhaps Brandon, could you just walk us through the why as to why they're not progressing as fast as we had hoped?
Sure, yeah, just off the top of my head, the larger ones are.
Is that the usual methodology that we use? Do you envision that having an impact on our choices for next?
Councillor Sherwood.
My question, so this will probably be for you, Brandon. Although Beth, if you have the answer, please go ahead. So how did that happen and what did I miss?
Through the mayor. So this was actually, it came to council in year after the budget was approved.
I've got a question. Can you ask your questions before the meeting?
All right, now we move to Councillor Costanza.
I have a question about the pickleball courts, actually. So pickleball courts says so just about 190,000, 102 over budget, so 4,000 going forward. Were they 100% funded by the town, or did the group of residents, like pickleball, I don't know if there's Grimsby pickleball, I don't know.
Through the mayor, the project was 100% funded by the town, not through other contributions.
Do we have a process on how we decide, this probably would go to Sarah, how we decide what organizations get fully funded for recreational facilities? Let me explain. Special Olympics wanted bocce ball courts, and Special Olympics had to 100% fund bocce ball courts in Southwood Park, which was them raising about $40,000. So when I see pickleball courts for $190,000 that were fully funded by the town, I see a little bit of unequal treatment. And so I'm just curious if we have a process on how we decide that, or if we just sort of go each project, because it's really not fair and it's a huge liability.
For you, Mayor. So the pickleball courts were fully funded, and we were also able to use development charges for that project. For the bocce ball courts, I don't have those numbers right in front of you, but I can gather them.
Sort of an official procedure on how we decide how much to fund for each organization, or is it?
I have all sorts of questions. Do we know, for example, whether we've received the definition yet of attainable units? Have we heard anything on that? No. Okay. My next question is they outline the targets. Are we one of those 29, or do we have any details on it yet?
The 29 have been listed. They were listed right away on November 24th.
And I just want to say thank you to all the staff for doing this. I know it was a really hard exercise, and I know you didn't get a lot of time on it either. So I really appreciate you just working and trying to give us some numbers. So I appreciate it.
I have some other questions though. What can because then the further in your report it says that it comes off and you can't put it back on for another 5 years. So really that means you can't have a heritage register anymore. So does that mean we have to go out and designate everything now? Like, do we have to mass designate to protect these properties? Because I think it's going to have, here's the thing. I think that the purpose of this legislation is to make it easier for developers. Are all these properties that are on the register properties that we feel should be designated? Do we just go out and designate everything, which has the opposite effect that the province is trying to achieve? Because the purpose of that register was to say, we'll weigh that when we get to it.
A lot of questions have been asked already. With Bill 23, it's now going to be 10 years? Is that going to read that correctly? So we have to go out 10 years? How does that work? How do we put So we had to put aside $5 million, $7 million a year for 10 years? I'm trying to figure out how that works. How we figure it out. All of a sudden, we require more DC funds to get through the capital projects. Does that mean we have to come up with extra money real fast? I mean, to cover those off? Am I saying that right? Am I asking the right question? You said what I thought you were going to say. Okay, and that's what we don't want. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to provide the update that we received today that the province is targeting February, March for their timeline to have the facilitator come in and engage municipalities and the region. So hopefully during that time, we'll have more answers than questions, and we'll provide a continuous update to council.
Further questions?
Yes. Sorry, what'd you call him? Facilitator? The purpose of the facilitator is to help us get through all the legislation that may or may not, which we don't have, which may come related to Bill 23 only, is that right? Or is this facilitator have another agenda that we don't know about yet?
Services from the region to the municipality, but again, the scope or what exactly they're reviewing has not been defined yet in specific.
Walk softly with a big stick.
Walk softly with a big stick.
Earth to Councillor Jacob. Can you tell them to find answers to their questions before the meeting? This isn't normal.
CAO, that was something that MPP Oosterhoff said that he wanted, or it was in the legislation for municipalities to track what it's costing them and what their shortfalls are. So,
Good.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.